Welcome to Marketing MASH, brought to you by themarketingscope.com.
Hi, this is Eric Vidal with The Marketing Scope. Today I have Jack Kosakowski, a contributing writer and friend of The Marketing Scope. Everyone always likes the videos that we do with Jack, so of course we bring him back. Also, you used to work in sales at a marketing automation, leading marketing automation platform company called Acton. You're now with the creation agency out of Europe. You're heading up the US sales efforts, and so that's why I wanted to bring you into the conversation, because I want to talk about SDRs and the value and the importance of that group when it comes to marketing and sales. And I think you said it best to me the other day. Eric, I look at them as a bridge between marketing and sales, and it needs to be a strong bridge. And I want to talk about that. And I sometimes tease my own people, marketers, because sometimes there's a lot of purists out there that say, well, okay, we get the leads that come in, they're very top of funnel, let's nurture them and let's make sure, and I get that, and we do that too, I get that. But at some point, you've got to hand it off to somebody, a dedicated person, like an SDR, which is a sales development representative. For those who don't know, every company has a different name, but it's somebody, it's a group or a person that's dedicated to just taking leads and making sure that they convert to a appointment or to a demo.
Yeah.
And so my hang up is these marketing purists who want to make 27,000 touches before they send it to a salesperson, or they even want to have the person buy online when they can't buy online because it's a $50,000 deal.
Especially in B2B, right?
Yes, yeah, B2B marketing that is a large platform or large purchase. But tell me your thoughts on this SDR team and the value that it provides or should provide.
Yeah, so I think that what's going on in marketing and sales right now with all the technologies, right, is that marketing is doing all these things, and they're running all these different campaigns, they're running them on different channels, and what happens is sales actually gets these leads, and marketing gets so excited, right? It's a quantity game. Oh, we got all these leads, they got to a lead score of XYZ, now they're sales qualified. Well, the problem is, are they sales qualified, right? Because I don't believe most of the time that marketing really knows what a true sales qualified lead is, because if they've never actually sold the product or been in the weeds on the sales calls, how do they really know? I mean, yeah, a buyer persona is great, but there's a lot of different things that happen when you're doing marketing, and there's a lot of different triggers, and different white papers give different results. So if marketing doesn't really understand that, well, I don't necessarily know if they have to truly understand that at a high level, because that's where an SDR comes in, right? So an SDR is kind of like the qualifier between marketing and sales, and making sure that the salespeople that are really good and the ones that are driving the revenue, right, to the business, that get the person on the phone and they're actually having that sales conversation, they're actually moving them through the sales process. You've got to make sure that those people are only on the phone with qualified people that are interested, that can make a decision, right? SDRs bridge that gap. Marketing gets the interest. SDRs kind of mine the interest, right? They probe the interest. They look at the different signals and triggers, and then they decide, okay, now it's time for one of our sales reps to actually have that sales conversation, right?
Yeah. And you need, in a good organization, even a startup, you need some of those things in place. You need that marketing automation nurturing piece in place, but you need that SDR team in place, because you don't want your sales team, especially if you only have 4 or 5 reps in a small company, you don't want them working on stuff that's top of the funnel and trying to convert them to an opportunity.
Exactly. You want them as efficient. You want your salespeople, spending their time as efficiently as possible, and that's having sales conversations that can actually move the needle and actually get you to the opportunity to revenue. And the cool thing about an SDR, and I think that this is where a lot of companies go wrong without having one, is that
we're bringing them in way too late. You know what I mean? That's if you talk to any sales leader at a startup, the good ones will tell you, what, SDR is one of my first hires.
Well, and SDRs hold sales accountable and they hold marketing accountable, because marketing is doing all these different campaigns, and it's really hard for marketing to spend all their time educating sales. So what they can do is they can actually educate the SDR on the different campaigns and how they want these campaigns to be touched? You know, how many phone calls? When should you call? When should you follow up with an email? What ebook should you follow up with once they show interest, right? All those little things that are happening in marketing, SDRs can actually take that information. They know these campaigns really well. They can kind of do that first layer of touch, qualify, and then pass it over to sales. And they can actually be the bridge in the communication gap to the sales team saying, why didn't you call this person? This lead is one of our highest highest converting lead sources. And I passed this over to you. You got to call this person right away, right? This is an inbound lead, or this is from a campaign that we spend a ton of money on. We spend X amount of dollars on these leads, and like these are the hot ones. These are people that are interested. So SDRs can kind of control that when sales says, well, marketing's not getting us good leads. Well, the SDR actually can stop that from happening because they can filter those leads before they get over to sales.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, when sales is saying marketing's not giving us qualified leads, the SDR can go, actually, no, they are. You're just not doing your job in sales. So I think it's a great checks and balances for a sales and marketing organization.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're having this conversation with me today because, and I have to be careful how I say this, but I run across a lot of companies that I work with. We're part of Broad Street Media Group, so we do a lot of lead gen programs for companies. And just in the last 3 weeks, you'd be surprised at how many companies that I've come across that did lead gen programs with us that were very top of funnel, but then I found out what their process was in place, and I said, I can't, can I give some free consultation for you, or just to help you, because that middle of the funnel was broken. They didn't have an SDR team. They didn't have an SDR team in place, one of them, and they had the sales reps sending out the emails. And you know how sales reps, you're going to send over top of funnel leads to sales reps. They're going to send one email, maybe call a handful, and that's it.
Well, I think they need to
be nurtured by the marketing team first for a while before they get thrown over the wall, literally thrown over the wall.
Well, this is how you build the trust between sales and marketing, right? If you're wasting sales, here's the mentality most marketers have, and I hope that this isn't you, but it probably is. Quantity. Oh, we generated X amount of leads. The problem is that if you think like that, you're passing leads over to sales, and what's happening in sales is, eventually going to figure out, wow, this is a bunch of garbage, and they're not going to trust marketing anymore. And what they're going to do is cherry pick from that point forward and really make marketing look bad, and then the war starts.
And but the other thing is, like you said, let's say marketing does eventually get their act together 5 months down the road, but they've already set the precedent, right? And so they already think that the sales team thinks that quality is weak.
Yep. And then it's a perception play, because then all of a sudden, let's say marketing's, I've seen this happen, the leads get better and now they don't get called because sales has already said, we've already played with these leads and wasted our time.
And I'll be honest, I'm a marketing person. I've done some things great, I've done some things okay, and I've done some things that weren't okay.
Yeah.
But I remember 10 years ago telling the executive that I reported to, why are, because I was a new role, and I said, why are we being measured by how many leads? I mean, I get that, and I want that because I can kill it, but we should really be measured on how many opportunities come from those leads or how much pipeline's created. And he got it. He was a little apprehensive because, he liked to show the CEO and a couple of the other C-levels, hey, guess what? We have, 5,000 leads this quarter. But 3-4 months later, and a lot of education, we changed. We changed the way we measured.
It's funny because the one thing that I talk about with our clients at Creation Agency, and this is the first conversation I have, is that I don't play the quantity game. Our job at the Creation Agency, we do a variety of things. We do some things for the top, some things for the middle, some things for the bottom. But at each point in that stage, I'm all about quality. And if a client says to me, well, we want to generate 100 leads. Okay, what 100 leads? Like, what's the qualification? Well, we just need our sales team on the phone. Well, that's your first problem, is that most organizations, the sales team is on the phone with leads, but they're just wasting their time, begging people to buy that aren't even going to ever buy because they're not at the right quality. So if you're in marketing today, you've really got to dive into that buyer persona, make sure that you're spending your time putting your marketing message and your marketing assets in front of the right people. And even more importantly is that you might tell the sales team, like, listen, you're not going to get a ton of leads, each week. You might get 4 or 5 leads when you used to get 50, but we're going to actually give you 4 or 5 leads of people that are actually qualified, that you have a shot at turning into an opportunity, right? And I will tell you, salespeople love that way more. Salespeople would rather say, okay, I know that I've got to identify, my own 5 leads this week or my own 5 good sales conversations opportunities, and that marketing's only giving me 4 or 5, but at least you get your salespeople excited when they see that marketing lead versus, classically conditioned, I'm like, oh, another marketing lead, right? Because that's what happens, and then the good ones slip through the cracks because they're so sick of all the bad ones.
So what are some of the highlights from this conversation? One is quality over quantity. 2 is don't throw something over the wall to the sales team right away or too early. Make sure you nurture. And a lot of the marketing purists, they definitely know that. They're good at that. And then the other thing I think is at some level, you need to have an SDR or somebody pick up the phone, set the appointment up. Don't,
absolutely. And to read the data, right? I think that's the most important thing is have the SDR, understand the sales side of things and the marketing side of things and really read the data.
Yeah.
And then make the decision of what should I do next? If it's a social person, should I do a social touch? Should I resend, should I connect with them on LinkedIn and then send them an ebook that follows up with the other one? I mean, really the SDRs really got such an important role in the organization because the main thing about this conversation that we actually didn't even talk about, but is the buyers, the main reason we want to do this. Because if if marketing's doing their job, the SDR is doing their job, and sales is doing their job, you're not wasting anybody's time, right? And the number one person you can't be wasting their time is the buyer. Yeah. And if you've got the right process, and you're qualifying right, and you're spending, you can actually call people, and when you pick up that phone, you know that you're talking and having a conversation with somebody who knows who you are, have seen you, they've been touched, they've seen the value, or they're curious at least because you've seen some behavioral action. Then you pick up the phone and you know that you're actually going to be able to give that person value versus waste their time.
Yeah, the last thing I'll put in there is last year in 2015, the Marketing Scope did a report and it talked about the top marketing programs in regards from an effectiveness level. And webinars were pretty high. In-person events, I think, were number 1. Mm-hmm. And in the top 5, though, was inside sales / SDRs. And that's a little vague, and there was some description about more detail on it, but having that component was necessary. It's not number 1 or 2, but it was number 5.
Yeah.
And you look at some other reports out there, it's number 4, 5, or 6. It's usually pretty high. It's not 12th on a list of 15. So something to think about. Thank you so much for sharing your real world.
Well, and this is a great conversation because you usually, we work with Sales Hacker, which is like, that's their channel is all about SDRs and, from the sales side. And I think this conversation is not had very often because the SDR is just as important to marketing as they are to sales. And so, marketers, if you're not taking advantage of and you don't have a good relationship with the, biz development team or the SDR team, then, hopefully you listen to this and you go, take them out to lunch, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
That's it for this episode of Marketing Mash. You can share your thoughts by following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast to keep up with the show. And of course, you can always find us by visiting themarketingscope.com.